Hola a todos. Me llamo Sofia, yo soy portuguesa y soy analista en la equipo de Waze en Nueva York. Yo hablo portuñol, voy a cambiar para el inglés ahora. Sí. Today, so we're going to present you consumer insights. And what I want to show you, me and Timor, who is also an analyst, a quantitative analyst in Israel, is how we can spot opportunities through the behavior that Wazers in Mexico, that we see from Wazers in Mexico. Right now, we are 2.3 million Mexico Wazers, and we drive a lot in Mexico, 470 million drives per month, kilometers driven per month. And through Waze, we can see how Wazers engage throughout a normal day. For instance, this is a weekday, and you see the popular times in the morning at 8 a.m., very busy traffic. I already had the opportunity to see it. And when people are driving to work, obviously, and in the afternoon, the spike is usually here around 6, 7 p.m., kind of late comparing to, for instance, to the US, where it's more around 5 p.m. But we are able to see these behaviors, and we can also see throughout the week what are the most popular days when people are actually on the road. And these things, they change throughout the year. For instance, this is January, and we see Monday and Tuesday being very important. But in the summer, I see that Fridays, Thursdays are actually very busy days. People probably preparing for their long weekends and time spending on the beach or something. And now I'm going to pass to Timor, who's going to talk to you about understanding location data, and then I'll come back.
Hola a todos, mi nombre es Roy Timor. Solo quería decir que estamos muy contentos a estar aquí y gracias para tenernos. I'm going to continue in English. Okay, so because I lead the analytics for the ads platform and I work for Waze, something that I do every time I get to a new city is, first of all, I check what's going to be the traffic. So I compared the traffic in Mexico City to a few major cities in Latin America. And what we measure here is the percent of time average that a person, when he drives, he spends in traffic. So now when we compare a few different cities, we see Guadalajara is okay, Rio de Janeiro, Sao Paulo is a bit worse. Mexico City is getting a bit higher, but you could get higher. It could get more. So I'd say so far, okay. When we try to really look at how this looks like, this is an example of an average morning on Waze. This is how it looked like. This is us there, Google. You can see that most of the traffic leans towards that area where more businesses and the likes. You can see that the center area, Zocalo, and those areas a bit less, but also has its fair share of traffic. But on Waze, we don't only get data on traffic. We have a community. We're a community-driven app, and the users actually engage with us, and they tell us things that happen. So one thing we wanted to look at is accidents, and we can see that relative to this amount of traffic, there's not actually that much amount of accidents in Mexico City. You can see again that it leans towards the area that has more traffic and has more drives. Let me try and see. Okay, my auto's there. It doesn't have a lot of accidents. I'm okay. I'm not afraid to come. So in order to really try and prove location data, I want to try and share with you an example of what's location data. What does it mean to have location data, and why is it better than other types of data? So the example I want to show you is navigation trends by day to 3 different types of places. One is Lomas, here, this area. The other is Zocalo, the central area, and another is Coyoacán. Now we can see that Lomas, during the midweek, has a high share of navigations, a lot of navigations, but it really drops on the weekend. Almost no one comes to Lomas during the weekends. When we look at Zocalo, we can see kind of the opposite. During the midweek, not a lot of people come to Zocalo, or much less than they come to Lomas, but during the weekend, it starts spiking. And a lot of people come there on the weekends, probably more touristic. People go there to have fun, travel around, and something like that. When we look at Coyoacán, it's kind of similar to Zocalo, only lower. We see it spikes on the weekend. During the weekdays, it goes lower. But we can see that it's probably more of a touristic area also, but not as popular as Zocalo. So this is something that we can understand when we look at navigation data. We really see where people go and what they do, and we see how it behaves. Now, in order to try and really go deeper on this, we wanted to look at specific examples and see how people drive. And we thought no better way in Mexico than to look at a soccer match. Now, we looked at the specific game of America versus Tigres in December, and what we looked for is what places had a high lift in navigations before the game started, for people who went to the game, but went before there to another place. Now, I want you to try and guess which types of businesses had the highest lift. What? Stores. Okay, so what we saw lift in is 3 types of locations. We saw in restaurants, shopping centers, and hotels. Now, when we try and look at it, we can try and see in the map. So you see Estadio Azteca is like south there. And we see this is restaurants that people drove to before the game. We can see it's all around. Some of them are closer to the stadium. Some are a bit further away. They had a high lift of navigations. Another place that had a high lift of navigation, shopping centers. A lot of people went. They went to shopping centers before they went to the actual game itself. And the highest lift we actually saw in hotels. So people probably actually came especially to see the game. So especially came to see the game itself and came and stayed in Mexico. We can see that the place where they stayed the most was around the Zocalo area. They took advantage and wanted to travel around and see the places. So now when we try to apply these types of analysis to other things, to businesses, we can try and analyze where people go and where do they go next. So the first business we looked at is Walmart. And what we saw is that for Walmart, people will 12 times more likely to go afterwards to a place defined as a hotel. So this is not the biggest share of navigations for Walmart, but it's a very, very distinct trend that we see when we look at Walmart navigations. Now we can try and guess and try and think what's the reasons for it, but probably we can safely assume that a lot of tourists go to Walmart, they want to buy a lot of stuff, or they visit in the area, and then they probably go to their hotels, and they probably want to unpack. I can tell you my personal story. 1.5 years ago, I was in Mexico City for my honeymoon with my wife, and on our last day, we wanted to buy a lot of stuff back home. So we went to Walmart, actually, and we bought a lot of stuff, and then we had to go back to our hotels, and we actually had to take the car, put everything, and go to our hotels. So for me, this is pretty likely. The next business that we looked at is IHOP, International House of Pancakes. And what we saw is that for IHOP, people were 2 times more likely to go shopping afterwards, and they stayed at IHOP roughly 100 minutes, which is, it's a lot for a place like IHOP that serves pancakes. But what we can try and understand here, or try to suggest to a business like IHOP, is to try and understand why so many people went to IHOP and then shopping. It probably makes a lot of sense for people, and maybe IHOP doesn't have locations inside shopping centers, and I don't know, I don't live here, so honestly, I don't know, but maybe that's the reason why so many people do it, and maybe they should think of how they place their locations, for instance, or how they make their offerings to maybe people who want to go shopping afterwards. Another place we've analyzed is Casa de Tonio. Who here goes to Casa de Tonio? Okay, so something that we saw very distinctively with Casa de Tonio is that a lot of people come from work. They actually go to work, stay there 4 hours roughly in average, and then go to Casa de Tonio, stay there for 70 minutes, and then go back to work. Todos Godines, no. But it's a very, very distinct trend, which I'm guessing this business knows of, but it's a very, very distinct trend during the midday. And this business can learn from such a trend and try and think of its offering and its people, is basically its target audience. So after we basically look at businesses and we look at drives, another thing we can look at vertically is how much time people actually stay at businesses and try to compare it between different businesses. So when we look at it generally across verticals, we see it differs a lot. Fuel has not so much time in it. QSRs, retail has a bit more. Auto, people stay a lot more. But what we try and do is really go to each vertical and try to compare the businesses. So when we look at QSR, I wanted to try and guess out of McDonald's, Burger King, and KFC, which one do users would spend more time in? Okay, so what we saw is Burger King actually has people staying there the longest. We can try and think of the reasons why. Maybe they have like the small amusement centers and people and families go there and stays for longer. But generally, you can see that people spend a large amount of time in such places. Another vertical we can analyze is auto. Now, out of Kia, Toyota, Mazda, and Ford, which one would you assume people stay longer? Ford, Toyota, Kia? Good Kia? Okay, so what we see here is very interesting. Most businesses of Mazda, Toyota, and Ford are very similar, very close. Kia, for some reason, has a much, much higher time rate. Now, we can check maybe Kia offers or offered during the time that we've checked a free test ride or some sort of offering around test rides, and that's why people stay there longer. Maybe their service is simply not as good as the other services, and it takes longer to stay there. Either way, it's very interesting to understand this across the vertical and try to learn the different reasons. I'm going to pass now to Sofia to learn more about the behavior of users.
Thank you, Timor. It's very good. So now I want to show you how we can, by learning with all this location data and learning with the behaviors, with the patterns that we see from Wazers to specific type of stores and categories, how you can build your strategy on Waze with these insights. I'm going to start by showing an example from Noches Palacio, the Palacio del El Hierro. And there's this very famous promotion happening in October, right? Where every weekend there's certain locations from Palacio de Hierro that have promotions during the night and during the weekend. And I'm highlighting here the navigations to all the palacios, and you can see that I'm going to remove the noise. There's like three main palacios here, Durango, Coyoacán, and Polanco. And these were the ones that had the biggest amount of navigations. Maybe because they're also in very popular areas and they're already very popular to visit. But we see Polanco, for instance, when the promotion was there, that the spike was enormous. So this is navigations to retail overall in Mexico. And you can see here from October, this is the October month. It ends in the end of October. And we see the influence that Noche de Palacio had in, Noche de Palacio had in the navigation. You can see that there's this spike. So in retail, these promotions was impacting a lot the overall category. But what happens after October, obviously, is November, the craziness of shopping, and we have El Buen Fin here in Mexico, right? And also Black Friday, and we see this huge impact of navigations to retail happening in November and for Christmas shopping, obviously. And we're also able to visualize on the map, like the amount of navigations, which were the most popular locations, and picking one of Timor's insights, we actually see that people that visit El Palacio de los Palacios are 10 times more likely to also visit Antara Polanco to continue their shopping, which is very interesting. And other thing that we can see is what happens throughout the day to store by store, and we are actually able to spot, like, this is a normal week, navigations to Polanco, to El Palacio de los Palacios, normally, and what happened during the promotion is like a huge spike happening in Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, obviously due to the promotions. And we're able to go store by store and check these trends. It's interesting to see in Coyoacán, actually the nighttime was very, very impactful, and we saw a lot of visits happening during the nighttime. And you can see it was probably Friday to Saturday. Now, Valentine's Day just happened, and I'm not sure how many of you went out last week on Tuesday. Not a lot? No, okay. I think I know why. So this is navigations to restaurants, and this was in 2016, so last year. And we see, so Valentine's Day last year was actually on a Sunday, and you see a huge spike happening on that Sunday of navigations to restaurants, people going out with their lovers and having a nice meal. This year, so far, this is the data we see, and it was on a Tuesday. So actually, compared to a normal Tuesday, it was a very popular day of the month. But if you compare to the days, the weekend just before, you don't see that huge difference. It was still very popular. And why I say maybe I know why is because I checked throughout the entire year, and I see that the Mother's Day week is, after Christmas, the most popular week to go out to restaurants to celebrate. So that what I find out is that Wazers really love their mothers, and they take them out during this day. So if I go back to this slide, thinking about these type of holidays, Valentine's Day is, for instance, one example where brands can be on a map, knowing that these spikes are going to happen, and Wazers are going to like be there driving and like looking at your advertisement. So now I just want to show you quickly and to like resume this section what you can get from us. This is the advertiser journey, and we are able to work with you to define the goals, your goals if you are an advertiser of your advertisers. We're able to visualize them, to put them on a map, and we're able to track them and to actually deliver results at the end. Going back to this trend about retail and restaurant, it's very important, especially when you know there's like events and seasonality coming ahead, to start building awareness way before these events happen. And this is logic. And this should be combined with the always-on strategy. And when the events happen, you're there already, and you're ready to drive engagements. And while you're driving engagements, you're actually ready to learn with us and to adapt your strategy to optimize your campaign on the map. This is, again, an example. We are able to visualize the results, to understand which locations are working, what is not working, spot opportunities and markets. And now you're familiarized with this type of trends to show like what is the navigation behavior to a stores, how it looks like. And for me, the most important, we are able to actually show results. We're able to like see if you're gaining market share in your category and how you're performing against your competitors. With this, I'd like to finish, and with 3 key insights. Well, first, we know Wazers, they are your consumers on the go, and it's very important to be on the map in order to build awareness, reach your drivers, and learn and adapt with our insights. Thank you very much.